Hey guys, I'm going to talk to you guys today about the kickoff cover drill. This is a drill that I really like to do with our guys because it incorporates the three different phases of kickoff that we talk about with our guys: the fly zone, the strike zone, and the finish zone. And then also about this drill that I like is it's a drill that's a full cover drill that our guys they're in their landmarks running down the field. So that way they get an idea of what their landmark is on the field and on the returner. And then also off of this, you can do a lot of variations off of it. We use a net drill at the end. We'll perform tackles with each individual guy at the end. And there's just a lot of different ways that you can go about this drill to change it up to where it's not always the same, which is always a good thing. So like I talk about, the first area that we talk about is our fly zone area. And you'll see in the drill, the first two sections, we have the avoid butt and then the stab and burst that we use in the fly zone. And so our avoid butt technique is like most teams use in the country, is if we get a butt side of the returner, then we're going to attack that butt side. We want to avoid butt side, and when we avoid butt side, we want to dip and rip. So we want to dip our near shoulder, rip our near hand through, get skinny, reduce the surface area. We want to give that guy as little room to get his hands on us as possible to perform the block. And then we want to restack to get back in my lane. And then the next one that we use is stab and burst that you'll see in the drill. It's on the pop-up that we perform. And so the stab and burst technique is a technique that we use if you get a squared up block. So you got a guy that sprints straight back, gives you his back, doesn't give you his butt. He flips around. He's trying to block you square up now. So we use the stab and burst. So we'll stab one way, basically stick one way, burst by accelerate the other. A lot of times we just give our guys the freedom to go whichever way they feel like they need to based off which way the blocker is trying to block them or where his leverage is at. And then in this one, like I said, we'll stab and burst. And then in that, he's got to use his hands. So he's got to be ready to throw his hands by to get the blocker's hands off of him. And then we want to restack, get back in my lane. The big thing that we talk about in the fly zone that we look for as we drill this stuff is speed. The one thing that you cannot block is speed. You can't block speed on kickoff. And so we use speed, speed, speed. So as we do this drill, we look for our guys. We don't want to see them chopping their feet before they avoid butt or before they stab and burst. We don't want to see them slowing down. They need to be able to perform these two moves at full speed as fast as they can run without slowing down. Then the next zone is strike zone. So in the strike zone is this zone that we really talk to our guys about being physical. We pride our kickoff team off physicality. You can't have soft players on kickoff. And so what we teach in this strike zone area is we got to run through blocks, not around them. And so the technique we use is what we call shock and shed. So basically we use this technique when you're 15 yards or less away from the ball carrier, that you got to use a shock and shed technique. So in this technique is we want to sink our hips, our eyes on our man's chin, and we want to explode through our hips using our hands. And the big thing about our feet is we cannot stop our feet. Our feet must not stop. We want to drive through our man, push our man back in the returner as we're running our feet. Do not stop your feet. Right here is the big key. And then we want to shed our man opposite the way of the returner. So when we finish on the shock and shed is we want to two-gap our guy. So we want to have him two gaps, and we want to shed him opposite the way the returner is. And so once we get into the finish zone, bam, we've shed our guy opposite the way the returner goes. We want to fit the returner with proper leverage. And again, is this drill does great for us because we can use a lot of different variations at the end. We'll just tap off on the returner. We can incorporate a tackle for each man, and then we can incorporate a net drill. So in the net drill, returner will work to us, and then returner will work away. So we have to know our proper leverage when the returner comes to us, and then how to fold when the returner works away. So right here, you'll see the setup. So we'll have our cones on the proper landmarks of the cover guys, and we'll be going on two whistles. So the first whistle, our assassins are going to go. They're going to go and they're going to cover with a proper technique on the returner. And then our second whistle, the rest of our guys are going to go. And then the first areas you're going to see in the fly zone, is like we talked about, is they're going to avoid butt right here, and then they're going to stab and burst on the pop-up. So they're going to get an actual butt to avoid on the avoid butt area, and then a pop-up, they're going to stab and burst. And the last area is going to be the strike zone using the shock and shed techniques. So they're going to shock the hand shield, be ready to two-gap it, and then shed our man opposite the way the returner goes. And then we're going to finish with a proper technique on the returner. So right here you can see just a simple drill setup. The first group that's going to go is going to be our assassins. So you'll see them go, and then right here the second whistle is going to have the remaining guys, and you see they're going to avoid butt right there at the 50. Then they're going to stab and burst the pop-up. You can see them use their hands on the pop-up right there to be able to throw by his hands, and they're going to shock and shed. You know, the one thing right here in the shock and shed phase is I'd like to see these guys really gain ground. You know, they're not really gaining ground. Their feet are stopping, as we needed them to drive their man back into the returner. But then you see the returner, he goes one way or the other. We shed opposite and fit off with the proper leverage. So again, it's right here at the end phase that we incorporate a lot of things. So right there at the end, sometimes we'll have guys where each man will be making a tackle on an individual dummy, or we'll perform a net drill. And so in the net drill, they'll just come off and they'll just net the returner. When the returner works away, returner works to them right there. So again, like I said, that's a really good drill that I like to use for our guys because it puts them in a game-like situation. As they're running down the field, they know what zones they're in, and they're on their proper landmarks. And so that's just a drill that incorporates all of that into it. So that way, once we get into the game, then our guys can understand that and use these techniques. So right here, you're going to see the shock and shed phase in the strike zone of our guy. You see he's going to be 15 yards or less. He gets underneath his man. You can see him right here. Bam, he gets underneath. He puts his eyes on the man's chin, gets underneath, shoots his hands, comes out of his hips, keeps his feet moving, runs right through his man, falls off, makes a tackle. So that's one. And then another one. Here's another one right here. Different guy. Same thing. He's running down the field. He gets 15 yards or less away from the returner. He's going to use the shock and shed technique. You can see right here, the returner's less than 15 yards. He's about to shock, shed him, fall off and make a tackle. Right there. And then you can see the man next to him, he doesn't understand, not using it. He's trying to use speed in the strike zone. He runs around the returner. Right here, again, he's in that strike zone, that shock and shed phase of the full cover drill. Sheds him, come off, makes a tackle on the returner right there. Okay, this one right here is you're going to see our guy avoid butt side, coming in from the backside. And so with our guys, our backside, we really teach them to avoid butt backside. You know, more times than not in the backside block, you're always going to get a butt side. So right here, you see on his guy gives him his butt. He goes butt side, wins, falls in and makes play. So you'll see it one more time. He gets butt side on his man. It's the center right there that's trying to block him. Gives him butt side. He goes butt side, falls in and makes a tackle. So you can see right here, you know, he's using the butt side technique. You know, he's more than 15 yards away from the returner. So we're still considered speed at this point. So he uses a speed technique that we teach, falls in, makes a great play. And then right here, you'll see the stab and burst technique that we talk about by this man. So you'll see right here the guard's blocking him. So watch the guard. The guard doesn't give him a butt. I mean, the guard turns, he runs right there, and then he flips his hip at the last second. So you see he gets a flip to hips. So he stabs one way, bursts, accelerates, bomb the next. You know, right here, you just wish he'd stay in the proper technique of his man, force him back in the boundary. But he does enough to get his guy to slow down. And we always teach, you know, first guy down, take your shot. Take a shot, get your man to slow down, and then we should have somebody else coming to make the play. So you see his stab and burst technique right there. Basically spins his guy around, allows to disrupt the return to where we can make a big play. So you see stab and burst bomb right there. Again, he does like to see him stack, get back in his lane better right there. But you see he makes a good play. So again, that's the kickoff cover drill. A really good drill that I like. Puts our guys on the landmarks that they're supposed to be on, and then it helps them understand where they're at on the field and the different phases and the different techniques that they need to use in those zones to be able to make a play. This has been a great drill that we do. We'll do this drill once a week on game week. Like it a lot, just to reiterate our proper technique, our leverage, our landmarks that we need to run down the field on. And it's a drill where you can make it as far and as close as you want to save legs or to really stretch your guys out and get them to cover full kicks. So this has been a great drill for us that we use all the time with our guys, and it's had a lot of success for us. So hope you guys enjoy and wish you guys the best of luck.